Well, thank you all for being here today and taking the time to do this with me. General Thomas, you've been the director of PA for over a year now, so can you give us your thoughts on how you think PA is doing and where we're headed?
Sure, thanks, Janelle. Yeah, I came in the job probably 15, 16 months ago when I came back to the Pentagon. And I came in with a lot of collaboration and talking to people in advance, talking to folks who had been in my chair before. And I came in with four key priorities. The first one was just doing a better job of telling the Air Force story. And then tantamount to that was creating a culture where it facilitated that kind of engagement and storytelling across our Air Force. Number two, and these aren't in priority order, but next to that is strengthening the career field. We've got some clear areas in the career field that we just have to really continue to get after at all levels, all ranks, across our total force. The third one was synchronizing the message across the entire Air Force, just being on the same sheet of music. Whether we're talking about F-35s or we're talking about diversity or basing, all of those different things. And then the fourth one was just providing world-class support to our leaders, and that's at every level. That's squadron commanders, wing commanders, up to the Secretary of the Air Force. So look, my sense, year plus into the job right now, is we are moving the ball down the field. We're making strides in all of these areas. Do we have a ways to go in some of these? Sure, and we'll talk more about that. But I just could not be more proud of the men and women, the public affairs professionals that we have right now. I wish I could travel more as I get out to the field. I get excited about what people are doing and the energy and the drive and the commitment that they're bringing right now. So bottom line, we're doing pretty well. We're strong as a career field. We're not perfect. We've got some ways to go in a few areas, but we're doing well.
All right. Well, I just want to go ahead and jump right in and let's talk about what's on everybody's mind, the consolidation. So, sir, can you go over what the purpose of the consolidation is?
Sure, and then I'm going to ask these guys to jump in. We've all got, there's more than enough to go around on this particular question, as you know. So ultimately, consolidation is about making us stronger as a career field. There's no doubt about it. We have to do it. I'm not pie in the sky on this one, though. We've all sat and talked hours about this issue. As I think most of our PAs know, we sent out a survey to our force because we really needed to know where they were at on this issue, how they were thinking about this issue, so it could inform our decision making. So again, it's about making the career field stronger. But look, I wish I could say that all the studies and all the data says we should have been doing this a long time ago. This is a slam dunk. This is a no-brainer. This is where we have to go. It's more complicated than that. I think the reality of it is we're doing this for two primary reasons. The first reason is resources. We've got to be more agile. We've got to be able to do more with what we have. And when we can put one or two PAs on that airplane, for instance, are they full spectrum PAs? Are they ready to do each part of the mission? And the second piece of it, it's really technology driven. There's a lot that's changed in this industry. When I say this industry, not the military here, I'm talking about the public relations, the communication industry. There's a lot that has changed in the industry. So you see this driving what the New York Times is doing and the Wall Street Journal and electronic media, that those reporters and those journalists are doing more. They're doing the written packages, they're doing photos, they're doing electronic packages. And so the technology is allowing us to do it, but we're going to have to really think our way, lead our way, and then clearly work our way through this as we move ahead. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be rewarding.
Do you mind if I throw a third on there?
Please.
For me, it really does reflect the reality of where we've been for probably the last 5 years or so. I think our survey told us that we have airmen working outside of their corps anyway. They're doing jobs and functions that may not be trained to do anyway. So I think this is going to strengthen us. It's going to pull all this together, hopefully. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll make us stronger in the long run. But it does reflect where we've been going anyway.
It does.
It does, and just to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Wren said, the survey, I've looked through it a lot, and some of the big things that I saw were We have airmen that are doing graphics work that have never been trained to do graphics. We have broadcasters that are shooting alert photos, never been trained at the schoolhouse or in their CDCs to do alert photography. So we have airmen at every wing that are doing things that they haven't been trained to do. And so we felt that it was important for us to provide them the training to do the things that the mission is dictating that they do.
But look, too, make no mistake, Janelle, we know that there's still going to be a certain amount of specialization that's going to happen. It's going to happen naturally. We all know, certain PA professionals who, man, they are the best photographer out there, or they're the best video guy or gal or writer. People are still going to have natural strengths, natural bents towards being able to be really good at one particular function. And we're going to find ways to be able to continue some specialization for certain jobs at certain levels, but everybody's going to have a foundation, a base of knowledge, so they can jump in there and they can play that position. If you need somebody on first base or you need a shortstop, they're going to be able to play anywhere in the field.
I like that metaphor, sir. All right, Chief, so I know that we have a lot of work to do to get where we want to be. So what is the latest update in the process?
So I could probably do a whole webinar series on on this, but I think narrowing this one down to 4 points is important. So right now we're working through doing a UNTW next year. So we have our Airman Advancement Division folks that are going out. They're visiting 8 different locations, and they'll visit SMEs at each location that are active Guard and Reserve folks. They'll compile a survey, which is not going to be a pleasant survey for anybody to take. The last time we did this, I took 3 different surveys, and they're very long, they're very tedious, very in-depth. We're trying to kind of focus those down and make it not as cumbersome for our airmen. But that's really the first piece. So by the end of the year, they'll get a survey, and I said UNTW, didn't I?
did.
I did.
You
Yeah.
our secretary hates
There's
acronyms.
there's no acronym jar on the table though. So, but the
You owe $1.
I owe $1. So the UNTW is the Utilization and Training Workshop. That's where all of our MAJCOM chiefs will they'll come, and then they'll bring in SMEs from both the broadcast side of the career field and the photojournalist side of the career field. And we'll sit down and basically we're going to go through building a new career field education and training plan, CFETP. See? Good. So we'll build that product, and really, so the survey piece is really the key. Then on top of that, we have the 3rd Combat Camera Squadron, Ken Ramonde down there, and he's helping us build some training products, videos. So we're going to have probably 10 to 15 videos that are going to help augment some of the training that we're trying to give to the airmen that are in the field. So he's already started that process. So we've got those going, and then probably within the month we're going to send out an email that's going to outline how we plan to train our airmen that have already graduated DINFOS, because that's something that hasn't really been done well in the past, and we want to make sure that we lay that foundation. So it's a 3-phased approach. We're going to send out the details, exactly how we plan to step through that, but we always welcome feedback, and questions, because I think it's important for people to understand why we're doing the things that we're doing. But so those are kind of the big things that we're working through.
Is it too early to talk about mobile training teams?
That's in the 3-phase thing.
Right.
I can hit on that. So really the 3 phases. First phase is going to be, we're going to have everybody do CDCs. So if you were a broadcaster, you're going to do the 3 volumes that were photojournalist specific, and then vice versa. So the photojournalist will do the broadcast specific 3 volumes. So that's phase 1. Phase 2, we're going to have a training plan that's going to help our airmen walk through the other skill set. So we'll have a training plan that says, okay, photojournalists, here are the broadcast tasks that you need to work on to get you to a point where you can be certified. So we're going to deliberately lay that out, and we're going to have everybody stepping through that at the same time. I know everybody won't be able to, because with deployments and TDYs and things, but for the most part, everybody should be stepping through that. So phase 2 will last about 18 to 24 months. And at the end of that 18 to 24 months, we're going to have trained a mobile training team. They'll be helping through some of that 18 to 24 month phase 2 process, but at the end of that phase 2, phase 3 will be them going out to all the locations and stepping airmen through a battery of tests, if you will, that will make sure that they've been certified to do the other skill set. So that'll be phase 3. Phase 3 will be short, but we'll be able to make sure that most of our airmen received everything that they needed to be certified in the new skill set.
So I know you say you're welcoming feedback. So are you welcoming any feedback on the name for the new consolidated? PA?
Absolutely, it's not set in stone. Do you have an
I don't
idea?
have one yet. Do you have one? Do any of you have one?
So right now,
Yeah.
what we're talking about is PA specialist. We've kind of tossed around a bunch of different names, and it seems like almost any name that you put on it leaves something out.
Right.
So PA specialist, I think, kind of encompasses a little bit of all of those skills, and it doesn't really leave anything out. I know there's probably some people that may have negative thoughts of that. Myself, I was former VI before the PA-VI merger, and to me it makes sense. I think if there's anybody out there that has those kind of feelings, they need to just think about where we're going in the future and kind of lay some of those past feelings aside and move forward. So
The feedback part, though, every piece of this we want feedback on. We've been, deliberate at each stage to really try to understand where the career field is on this. And as we move to every stage, as we move forward on this, we're going to need feedback.
The training really is the key.
It
I
is.
think when you get right down to it, the training is the key.
Success or failure.
It's success or failure, roger that. And it's going to take leadership at all levels. It's going to take leadership at our level to make sure we have everything in place. It's going to take leadership at the MAJCOM level. And then at the wing level, we've got to make sure folks are getting the training they need. And the only way we'll know that is if it's being done at the wing level. So it's going to take leadership down into the grassroots level as well.
that's true. And not to harp on past consolidations or mergers, but I think part of that was that we didn't have leaders that were all speaking in the same direction. And so we had folks at Wings that were, I don't want to do this, and I have bad feelings about this because I don't like PA or I don't like VI. And so they were resistant to the change. There wasn't really a process to kind of step people through, help them to understand why we're doing what we're doing. And then the leadership really wasn't there to say, this makes sense, this is where we're going, and we're gonna put our best foot forward and we're gonna succeed.
And then speaking of getting leaders all on the same path for the future of PA, what expectations should the PA chiefs have for the new PA specialists coming in?
With consolidation specifically?
Yes, sir.
In the broader sense, expectations aren't really going to change that much. Our core functions don't really change, contributing to morale and readiness and all the things that we're doing as PAs. So fundamentally, this is going to be about working, the boss's agenda and the boss's agenda. Knowing where we need to go as an Air Force, as a wing, as a MAJCOM, whatever your unit is that you're nested beneath. And it's going to be about working those priorities and providing, the full range of communication capabilities to that commander, to that boss, to that leader, to help them succeed with the mission. So what changes here? Probably the piece that changes is, to some degree, it's about training. It comes back to training, making sure that people get the exposure they need to the different skill sets, the opportunity to excel in those different skill sets, the opportunities to rotate in some cases to different functions within PA, to broaden themselves and learn something new here. And in that sense, while this is still going to be hard and we're going to ask people to kind of dig deep in some areas and step up and study a little more and learn something new, it's also kind of exciting because, our airmen who grab this bull by the horns and really embrace it, they're going to come out better, more capable professionals.
Go back to where I started with that's already happening in the field.
Yeah.
I mean, my last assignment, airmen would water your eyes with the kind of products they're fielding in areas that they're not trained to do. They would just absolutely blow your socks off. They're doing it. They're doing it out there. Now we have an opportunity to get them trained up and properly equipped for it. So this is exciting, I think.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I'll tell you, like, as soon as we made the announcement, the survey feedback wasn't great. But it wasn't all negative either. I think there was a lot of positive things that came out of that. But as soon as the announcement was made that this was the way we were going, there was a lot of support on Facebook and over email and phone calls and face-to-face conversations that I've had with people, I think people are really excited about where we're going. And there are a lot of people that call me, hey, can I be a part of a mobile training team and things like that. So I'm excited because I think there are more people that are willing and ready to step up and help us get through this, because I can't do it by myself. You can't do it by yourself. You know, it's going to take the team of PA to work us through this consolidation, and I think we have a strong team that's stepping up and is going to help us through this. So
To tag on to that too, Chief, one of the things that I've found over the course of my career people really don't like is uncertainty. That can be uncertainty about their next rank, their next assignment, their next whatever it is. That's the part that can just be hard on people serving in the military at times. And with this change, with the right level of communication, I say right level, I'd rather over communicate than under communicate on this one. We want to be able to remove as much of that uncertainty from the equation for our airmen and PA professionals as we possibly can.
And I like how you brought up how we're a team for PA, and of course, you know, in the military in general, we're all a team. So, including the civilians, Mr. Rand, do we have any expectations for the PA civilians as we go through this consolidation, or advice?
I think so, sure. I don't really, theoretically, I don't expect a whole lot to change for the civilians. We've already transitioned, for the most part, not completely in all areas, to these PA core, standard PA core docs, PDs, position descriptions. So theoretically, our folks are already multi-skilled. But having said that, I think we all recognize that, you know, the training's been a bit uneven. You're going to have gaps and seams and areas where folks might not be comfortable working outside of the areas they normally do. So we're going to have to focus on that, as well as I know the chief is going to look at building some capacity in there to make sure that the civilians are getting the kind of training that they need to. Again, I see this as opportunity to get them the proper training, the proper equipment, you know, et cetera, all the things we do to make them successful. So yeah, theoretically shouldn't change, but we recognize there's reality out there on the street that, you know, that we probably owe them some additional training opportunities.
Sure.
And back to you, Chief. Could you speak on whether the consolidation of the X2s and X5s is a possible solution for the retainability issue through the E4 through E6 ranks?
So, yeah, I would say yes and no. We didn't make the decision to consolidate because of that issue alone. I'll tell you, especially with our X2s, the broadcasters, it's been a concern for years that once they hit that 4 to 6 year mark, they're leaving in large numbers. So as we kind of started doing some of our prep for, you know, how do we fix this issue, digging into it, we really found out that what happened was when we did the VI-PA merge in 2007, they shifted all of our videographers into the broadcaster course, when about 80% of our folks are actually in video production documentation jobs. So the mission is really video production documentation. 80% of our folks are at wings, combat camera, at the schoolhouse, different places like that. When about 20% are at AFM. So really what we did then was we shifted to a broadcaster mindset. So it's created a bunch of issues for us doing that one thing. Our wing PA chiefs are always asking, how do I use my broadcaster? Because they're trained in a broadcast skill set at DINFOS. Their CDCs are kind of lined up that way. They take a voice audition before they come in to the Air Force. And the job description kind of reads broadcast writing and announcing. So everything aligns them that way. And then 4 out of 5 graduating DINFOS go to a wing PA shop where the mission is not broadcast related,
So
really.
This is about expectation management
It
as
is.
much as anything.
It is.
Being realistic with our airmen.
Right. So in that, whether we determined that we were going to consolidate or not, which we're going to, we had already talked about shifting from the broadcast course to the video production documentation course. That was going to be a course of action for us because we believed that was going to help set expectations better. So while consolidation isn't intended to fix the retainability issue, it's going to help us because in that new course, we took out all the broadcast writing and announcing skills and we put it in a separate course. It's an add-on course basically. So everybody's going to go through that MCF. It's the Military Communication Fundamentals course. Everybody's going to go through that. And then at the end of that, if you're going to an AFN detachment, you're going to go through that broadcast writing and announcing add-on course before you go to that assignment, so that you have those skills before you step into one of those assignments. So the consolidation is going to help us with our retainability issue, I believe, because we're going to have expectations set, and I think we're going to have everything lined up better for the future.
And while we're on this topic, sir, what are we doing about the officer manning shortfalls?
We don't have a final solution on this yet, and frankly, this is something we've kind of struggled with over the years. But we've got a commitment to try to get our authorizations back up so they're more in line what we need to have. We call it our sustainment line. How many lieutenants do you need up here to be able to grow this many colonels 22 years later? And right now we're out of whack, we're out of balance. So we're trying to get those authorizations up, and the vice chief is looking at that to see how he can help us. Another one of the areas that we have to continue to work through is just attrition. We lose people at the 5 and 6 year point. Matter of fact, our attrition's about 50% at the 5 and 6 year point on officers. And there's a number of reasons for that. And so we're working some different solutions to try to be able to increase attrition. We're also looking to be able to bring in crossflows or laterals. If you look at the Navy model, for instance, at their senior ranks, they're healthier than we are. They're able to grow the number of Navy captains that they need for Navy public affairs, and they do it through a couple things. One of them is they bring a lot of laterals across, so if somebody is medically disqualified from flying or from ship duty or whatever, they'll often bring them across for whatever reason into public affairs at those middle grades. The other thing the Navy does is they promote to need. So they make sure as long as they've got good qualified officers, they promote enough to go into those senior officer ranks. So we're looking at a host of different solutions to be able to get healthy again. And I'll give you just one example of kind of the challenges that we have on the officer side. People who've been around for a while remember PBD, Presidential Budget Directive 720, back in the 2005 timeframe, where we lost 34% of our public affairs officers. So our manning, and the way our manning's declined over the years, by the way, so has the Air Force, but our manning declines more steeply than the Air Force manning has, while our demands for communication and information has continued to go up. Well, shortly after the career field took that hard hit in PB 720, the Air Force corporate structure decided to give us back. They knew how short we were, and they said, you're 111 officer positions short. So we're going to give you 57 of those back, and then what we need you to do is go through the Air Force corporate process, POM, Program Objective Memorandum. It's the way we sort of fund for future years' resources, and that we just need to go into the process and grow a few PAs every year. Well, we got that initial 57 officers back, and we haven't grown one officer since then. We haven't been able to get through that process and been able to increase the number of PA officers out there. So that's what I'm working with the Vice Chief to be able to do, to get our officer corps healthier and being able to grow the numbers of people that we need at those senior ranks.
And it's tough. It's a tough environment because there's need across the Air Force. So it's a matter of prioritization, and so it's a tough fight.
That's a realistic perspective on it, because if you look at how many maintainers we're short, how many security forces we're short right now, RPA community, cyber, and then you look at areas that are a little bit different, the pilot shortage we have going on. So it's a tough environment. So to sit down with the Vice Chief today and say, I know there's a lot of career fields hurting, but this is why we need additional public affairs officers. And the Vice Chief was extremely receptive. He understands where we are. He understands and values, he and the Chief and the Secretary. We couldn't ask for a leadership team who understands and values what public affairs brings to the fight than we have right now.
And I think preparation, I think we all can say that preparation before we come in is really important. So Chief Cook, will the new airmen be required to pass a voice test or attend speech training before they go to basic training?
So that one is sort of, I don't want to say it's up in the air. We're going to, when we have the UNTW, the Utilization Training Workshop, next summer, that'll be part of the discussion. I do know one thing that we are going to require is a grammar test. So if we remove the voice audition, there's still going to be a grammar test required when you go see the recruiter. I'm not 100% certain that we're going to remove that voice audition, but I think it's something that we need to discuss. Like, is there a need to do that still with you know the airmen that we're going to bring in? So we'll have that discussion next summer between the chiefs and all the SMEs, and we'll make a determination on whether or not we keep that. And I think I'm probably leaning toward yes. But really, I want to hear everybody's take on, do we need it? Is it something that's required of our airmen? I believe definitely that grammar test is. That's something that's been an issue. That's something that the Navy's trying to tackle. Doing that at recruiting, they're having some issues, but from what I've talked to AFPC and the recruiting service about right now, it's not going to be an issue for us. We'll be able to add that in. I've already got the test from DINFOS, so we're definitely move forward on that.
Perfect. Anyone want to add on to that?
No, I think, well, yeah, I guess I do. We have to have that quality coming in the sessions.
Yes.
I've been to DINFOS, I've talked to them, as have these gentlemen, and the Air Force probably does the best among the services, getting the quality in the door to be that caliber of PA that we need. But things like grammar test and these types of things will go a long way to make sure that we set the bar right before they ever come in.
So now I want to talk about the use of PA in the wings. So Mr. Rand, how can we enforce the culture of engagement to commanders?
Let me start big and work back down to small. First thing's perspective. We've been doing this culture of engagement for not even a year. I think it was last year, Corona, which is
We really
November
kicked it off.
November timeframe. So it's still new, it's still fresh. It's very encouraging to me. Well, let me go back to something the boss said just a moment ago. He talked about the leadership here, the secretary, the chief, the vice chief. The folks here in the Pentagon are pretty serious about this
They are.
culture, and they live it, they breathe it.
Every single Corona that we go to, every 4-star conference, every major engagement, you hear from our senior leadership, we need you to be talking. You know, one of the phrases they often use is, if you're a commander or you're a senior enlisted leader, when you pass the flag back, be ready to pick up the microphone. And they're serious about it.
So General Thomas and I both go out and talk to wing commanders, newly minted wing commanders, as part of their orientation course down at Maxwell. And I'm sure you get the same response I get, but for the most part, the commanders are, in some cases, are a little bit anxious, but they're embracing it for the most part. I just went through the senior leader orientation course out at Andrews, where they bring together all the newly minted senior executive service folks and the new 1-stars, and there was real and genuine excitement about this. They're getting it. They really are getting it.
But it's going to take a couple generations of commanders before we're really there. So how we talk about this is, you know, we'll tell people we have a calendar of engagement right now. If you look across any given week across the Air Force where we are engagement-wise, more is going on. More MAJCOM commanders are engaging, the chief, the secretary. You know, more commanders, more senior folks at all levels are out there talking about what the Air Force is doing, and more camera crews on bases, whether it's 60 Minutes or Fox or whoever. We've got a lot of great things going on. But we've also had this risk-averse culture in the Air Force that I guarantee you we could turn on a dime if we had a chief and the secretary who stopped talking to the media.
Yeah.
You'd have this chilling, this ripple effect. The MAJCOM commanders wouldn't feel as free to engage, the 2 letters, the wing commanders. So we have to ingrain and really instill this so it's really culture. Not just a short term, let's get out there and engage, but to where there's an expectation in the Air Force that it's part of being an airman to connect with the American public, to tell our story, and advocate, frankly, for the budget that we need to be able to do our jobs.
So I think we've made great progress over the last 10 and a half, 11 months, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Made great
Oh, yeah,
progress.
absolutely.
Now, having said that, there are still some holdouts out there. There's still wing commanders out there, senior leaders out there, who just, for whatever reason, aren't comfortable and they're not ready to do it. And we recognize that. We get that. What we can do as PAs at the wing level is bring our A game, make sure we're ready, to help
Amen.
that wing commander manage that risk. Because that's what we're asking them to do in some cases, is place themselves in a risky environment. Not always. Sometimes it's fluff, and we get that. But every once in a while we put them in that risk environment, and that's where we really shine, because we can help them manage that risk. We can handle it. We can tell them the topics to stay away from. It's what we do. So.
Absolutely.
And as we bring our A game, so when we do have a new commander come into the wing, what should we bring to the table in that initial meeting, General Thomas?
They always say you can never make a first impression twice, or a first impression again. So as we engage with new commanders when they're coming in, that's absolutely critical. And that's not just the PA chief, the captain, the major, whoever that person is. That takes the whole team to be able to do this well. Frankly, I can speak from recent experience, because we just brought a new secretary in. And it wasn't just about me as a director of public affairs. It took our whole team to be able to help her understand and instill the confidence that she had a communication machine here. She had professionals that could fire on all cylinders and be able to get the results that we need to get with our A game in a national and international communication environment. So when our leaders go in and meet our wing commanders or whoever that senior leader is for the first time, it's going in, it's understanding their agenda, asking them a lot of questions, be in receive mode, make sure that we understand their agenda, we understand their boss's agenda, and we're really ready to work that and enable them as leaders. It's about coming to them with a 100-day plan and go, here's our strategy. Here's our plan. Week 1, we want you to do this, this, and this. Week 2, we recommend this, this, and this. Here's where we need you to engage in the community, and here's why. Here's how we're going to partner with LL, because at the base level, you don't normally have a legislative liaison, somebody in the CAG or protocols filling those functions. How do you help them in those areas? How do you help them with local media, with editors, with publishers? All of those things with the internal audience, and giving them a plan that they can sink their teeth into and go, okay, yeah, I agree with this, this, and this. I'm not comfortable with this. You give them something. Then they need to understand your capabilities. I just talked to a former wing commander today, and she said, the one thing where I didn't quite feel as equipped as I wish I would have is I didn't really know how to use my PA when I first got in there. I said, yeah, I've heard that before. Most wing commanders have never had a PA before. So it's incumbent upon us at the senior levels to help train those wing commanders. It's incumbent upon our PAs in the field to go, here's how to use me. Here's what I can do for you. And the last thing I would say on this, as we work to support those leaders and work their agendas, is we're not just about putting out a press release or doing a news story or doing a community engagement. We're communication advisors. So we've got to think and elevate our thinking to be strategic. How can we help support all of their problem sets or their opportunity sets? And then the only way that we as PAs are going to be really successful at doing it is to be there. So the chaplains have this phrase they use, ministry of presence. Ministry of presence. To be successful as a chaplain, you need to be there. You need to be there with a coffee in the middle of the night during the ORE or the exercise, operational readiness exercise. You got to be there. And as PAs, we got to be there. We got to be looking at the boss's calendar and going, I need to be in that meeting. We've got to be there, when those big things are going on. We've got to be there with recommendations. We got to be there.
I just want to piggyback on the planning piece of this. I think, especially for a young officer at a wing, you're probably a captain, and the rest, maybe a lieutenant, and the rest of the wing staff, probably a major lieutenant colonel. So I think it's more important for you to be even over prepared if that's the case.
'Cause you're having to punch above your weight.
And if you're not sure how to do it, pick up the phone and call the MAJCOM. I guarantee you the MAJCOM guys know how to do it. Or a colleague at a different wing who perhaps has already gone through this. They've got formats, they've got good advice. Just that collaboration might spark some additional ideas for you to include in his or her plans.
Our smartest PAs are benchmarking every day like that. They're benchmarking, they're networking. They may feel at times like they're on a physical island, but they don't have to be on a virtual island.
Yeah, but if you go in prepared, you're confident, and if you're confident, the wing commander is going to feel that, and it's going to help him feel confident about your abilities. So I mean, that's
And one of the things I've always tried to do is walking out of that meeting, make sure I have a clear understanding of what the commander's priorities are. If I don't already know that, that's a question I'm packed, ready to ask. So that you can, it's almost like a campaign, a politician in a campaign, just understanding what their platform is. What are the things
That's the right way to think about it.
yeah, just understanding what they want to accomplish, what they want to get done in that first 30 to 90, or maybe even throughout their tenure as a wing commander.
So I've got this whiteboard behind me here, and I've got different categories on that whiteboard. And in red, the first column is the boss's priorities. SECAF, CSAF, what do they expect? What do they need? And then the next column is my priorities. What do I want to get done? And I've got a definite set of priorities I want to accomplish, but I never confuse my priorities with the boss's priorities. And every once in a while, when those priority sets start to get blurred, it can get people in trouble. It can lose their focus, take their eye off the ball.
So the two words you said, be there, are just sticking with me. So I think as a PA, feeling the vibe of the base is definitely a part of being there.
Yes.
And I know it is our job, it's a very important part of our job to boost morale for the base. And Mr. Wren, I wanted to ask you, what can we do better to support that mission, and how does that tie into the CSAF's focus area, strengthening the squadron?
Well, I think you nailed it with feeling that vibe. We are the eyes and ears on behalf of the commander. We go places, talk to people, see things that he or she just don't have the time to do. So knowing your audience, that's a fundamental thing. Knowing what the people on your base are going through, what are their issues, and being proactive, right? And so we have the luxury of being able to produce products that inform, inspire, motivate, right? And it, I'm not sure if there's anyone else on base that has that power. It's pretty powerful if you think about it, and you're doing it on behalf of the commander. I think all that, if you're doing it right and you're getting out in front of problems and issues, equals higher morale or can impact morale. And clearly that relates back to the chief's number one focus area.
Yeah, revitalization of the squadron.
Yeah.
Revitalization of the squadron.
Revitalization, yeah, right.
Thank you.
Right. So,
Yeah, piggybacking on that, so the inform piece, I think airmen crave information, and they're going to go looking for information wherever they can get it, whether it be a Facebook page or Twitter or word of mouth from somebody. And a lot of times they don't get information passed on to them correctly. And so I think for us, when things come down from air staff, policy changes, program changes, whatever it would be, we need to make ourselves the expert, and we need to pass that on to the airmen in our wings. That way they are informed. And to me, if you're informed and you don't have to go searching for who's going to give me the right answer, if you're informed properly, then I think that helps your morale, because you have awareness, you have education, you're smart on issues, and we have the ability to make people smart on issues.
And we have to pass on what we have when we have it. We can't sit back and wait until we have the 100% solution with all the details and all the blanks filled in. There's times you have to go, just like in crisis communication. Here's what we know, here's what we can tell you now, and then you fill in the blanks as you move ahead.
and we have a lot more tools today than we did 30 years ago, right? So you don't have to wait for that base newspaper to come out on a Friday. I mean, you can get it out instantaneous using some of the tools we have. So,
you know, one of the things we talk to new PAs, when I talk to new PAs at DINFOs and other places, is a few different attributes of what we expect of them to really be good PAs. And one of them is just to be aggressive.
Yeah.
And that's what I think about, whether you're talking about being there or you're talking about pushing that information out. You got to be aggressive. This is not a game for folks who are passive. You got to lean into it. You got to be out there. You got to anticipate what those needs are. You need to be responsive. You need to try to look around corners as best you can and just get in there and mix it up.
And I think that's what most commanders are looking for.
Absolutely, they are.
Stay in the game.
Yep.
So speaking of the advice you give to the new airmen coming in, what areas do you think SPA as a whole can improve on?
Well, let me go back to the priorities for a minute. I'm pretty pleased with where we are, but I'm not complacent with where we are right now. So there's things that we have, responsibilities we have up at SAF PA right now. For example, the chief just talked about the importance of getting information out there quickly. We're still working through some of those things. A policy change at A1, by the time it gets down to the MAGCOM or the wing, they may say, hey, SAF PA, where were you? We needed this a week ago. We're in tune to that. We understand that. So we're working to push the whole machine up here to be able to be out ahead of things the best we can and equip people to tell the story. And that goes to the priority of synchronizing, our message better. And we've got a real responsibility to do that here. In the field, at the wing, at the MAGCOM, the more that our PAs think about that synchronization, the more they think about being strategic in how they communicate. The term strategic communication has sort of fallen out of favor doctrinally. It's sort of passé in some regards. But the idea of strategic communication, the idea that we're combining our words, our images, and our actions, bundling and thinking about all of those things and how they work together. We need our youngest PAs to be thinking about those things. We need our youngest PAs to be the ones that sit in a staff meeting and go, hey boss, I think if we did this, if we took this action, not just, yeah boss, we'll put a release out after you decide something, but let's think strategically, let's get ahead of things. How do we really get serious about the image, the brand, the information, and the what the American public and our communities receive and hear when they think about the United States Air Force?
So I'd like to jump in on that one too. So I get asked sort of this question in a roundabout sort of way. I have a lot of times when I'm out talking to airmen or PA chiefs or whoever, I always get our airmen aren't trained to this level, or they're always giving me this deficiency in an area, whatever area. And I would say training. A lot of times if a PA chief has said, our airmen aren't as good at communicating as we used to be, or in writing or photo or video or whatever form of communication that is, I always ask, how often do you do weekly training sessions? And the answer is usually never. We don't have time.
Yeah.
We're very busy, and I get it. I know that our wing shops are very busy. They're always been asked to do more with less people. But I can't stress how important it is to train our airmen, because one, you're investing in that airman. So you're showing that you care enough to teach them to do the things that you're asking them to do in a hurry. And so when you're investing in them, they feel cared about, and they're more likely to stay around. So that kind of touches on that retainability question that you asked earlier. And then I'll say this too, whether it be writing or photo or whatever, when we merged PA and VI 10 years ago now, we had shops of PA folks that might have been 3 enlisted, and they were writing all the stories for the base papers. They're probably writing 4 stories a week. Well, now you have a shop of 20. And so you're spreading those stories out the same amount. And a lot of times, airmen aren't even writing a story in a week, because we don't have that driver of the base newspaper. We have the website, so it's when we do it. We'll get to it when we get to it almost. So I will say the drive to do a lot of the products that we used to do isn't the same. So it's more important now that we keep those skills finely tuned. And so we do that through training and weekly training sessions, monthly training sessions, whatever it would be. Very important. So I would say that piece for me to improve upon at Wings, MAGCOMs, wherever it would be. That will always be one of the more important things that we do.
Yeah, you're talking about technical competence, technical proficiency.
Right.
And most commanders understand what that means. And they're willing for a wing or to shut down for a few hours on a Friday or whatever time you take to work on that, to sharpen that skill set. So do it. You really got to force yourself in some cases, because the guys are really busy out there, but it's an investment. You have to do it. You just have to.
Yeah.
When I worked for our former chairman, General Dempsey, on the Joint Staff, the thing he would often talk about is the need for both character and competence. The character one should be so assumed that we shouldn't almost have to say it. Our credibility, the heart of our credibility lies in our character. People won't care how competent we are if we don't have the character, the credibility, the trustworthiness. But then that competence piece, no matter how great our character is, if we don't know the skills and we can't master the skills, we're not going to be proficient. We're not going to succeed. We're not going to be able to move the mission where we need to move it. So the combination of both of those things, how we treat people on our teams, how we lead because of our character, whether we smile when we walk into the office, what we say to people, how we act to people on the phone, to how well can we put that story together? How well do we know our grammar when we're working on a story? How well can we deploy into the field and be able to set up our communication capabilities? All of those things, they matter. Character and competence.
Thank you. So I heard some great things about PA Worldwide last year. I wasn't able to attend because I was just coming here to the Pentagon. But will there be another one in the next year?
There will be. Our intent is to do a worldwide about every 18 months. I don't want to do them less frequently than about every 18 months. And then in the intervening times, try to start scheduling these things far enough out so then the MAGCOMs and other levels can pull their people together in between the worldwides. So we had a relatively large worldwide out in Leesburg back in December. Great success. The ability to pull everybody together, to get briefs on everything from crisis management, to have General McDough come talk to us about U.S. Transportation Command, and the Secretary come talk. Fantastic opportunity. We'll be a little bit smaller, a smaller footprint on the next one. It'll still be total force. There'll still be some representation from the Guard, the Reserves. We'll still have active duty wings and MAGCOMs represented, but it'll be probably about 25% smaller than the last one was, and that's just because of some limitations on throwing large conferences with tax dollars and other limitations.
So if someone like myself hasn't been to one before, what can they look forward to?
The first and foremost, the best thing about pulling the career field together is to just get together. It's to come in and talk about what our challenges are, what our opportunities are, what's working, what's not working, the solidarity, to find out you've got other people dealing with the same things. Part of my guidance on the last one, I don't know how well I met it, is have a lot of break time. Have plenty of time in between these sessions, because sometimes that's where the best exchange of information, the best exchange of ideas happens, is between our own PAs. On the other hand, we work really hard to bring in foremost experts, to bring in professionals who are the best at what they do. We had one individual, Fred Garcia, who talked crisis management.
Awesome.
Best crisis management brief I've heard in my whole career. And I think that was probably almost universal from the folks listening. I took nuggets away from that briefing that I hadn't thought about in a certain way. So it's the interaction, and it's the opportunity to sit and listen to those professional development opportunities.
Those relationships you build are really, really
Absolutely.
important, because it helps you begin to build and round out your network, so that when you are faced with that challenge, you just can't quite get your head wrapped around, or it might be just an idea that you have that you want to bounce off someone. You can phone a friend, just pick up the phone and call someone you met at the Worldwide. So it's priceless, it really.
And we tend to be geographically spread out. We tend to, at times, be a little bit separated from other parts of the mission and the wing, being a staff agency. And to me, it just seemed like it was, I know it was for me when I was a junior officer going to those things. As I looked out and I talked to people, there was just kind of this genuine feeling of family that, oh, okay, the rest of them are out there and now we're all together. And there's a lot of goodness in that.
Definitely, especially because I mean, when you talk about an installation, we might have 10 to 15 people on a base, you know, where a maintenance squadron has a couple hundred people, you know. So when we get together in large groups like that, the diverse opinions and the benchmarking of ideas and things like that, you can't beat that. You can't do it on the phone. You can't do it over VTC. So
No.
to be able to do that in person is just
Face to face.
yeah, absolutely, it's the best. So.
I look forward to going next year. So a lot was definitely discussed today, but I know we didn't cover everything. So where can airmen go if they have any follow-up questions or additional concerns for what we talked about today, or feedback?
First off, feedback's the breakfast of champions. It truly is. If there is anything I try to convey as a leader, it's not only do we need your feedback, we demand your feedback. We need your feedback to be able to serve the field the way we need to serve the field. So let us know. Let us know up through your public affairs change of command is one way, and then we're going to set up a forum where we're going to probably set up an hour-long or so conference call line where people can just call in with their questions, and we're going to take as many of them as we can. Hey, let me end with something though. Something I was thinking about walking down the hall of the Pentagon before we started this. It's one of the things I never want to lose sight of is how critical our mission is right now. And I'll start at the broadest level. Department of Defense, Department of the Air Force right now. What we're doing right now at this time in the world, you cannot underestimate, you can't overestimate the value of what we're doing. You look at, I think a lot of people have heard 4+1, you know, our challenges out there. North Korea, the provocations there, an ascending China, a re-emerging Russia, a Iran that continues to export terrorism. And then you add on top of that, the +1 is transnational terrorist networks that are out there. The Islamic State, ISIL, Taliban, Haqqani network. The things that we're engaged in right now for our nation are tremendously important. And in the information environment that we're in right now, the 24/7 all-on information environment, public affairs is as much operations as anything we do in the Department of Defense right now. And space has this, Air Force Space Command has a really effective campaign. They've got a video called A Day Without Space. Yeah. How would things be if all of a sudden you lost your GPS and you lost your SATCOM and you lost your imaging abilities? What would a day without public affairs be like? What would a day be like with that umbilical cord to the American public and the international public cut?
Yeah.
So we got to keep the throttles up. It's just too important.
I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea. We ought to make that video.
Well, thank you all for taking the time out to talk to me today about what PA is doing in the future of PA. And
No, thank you, Sergeant McCray, for setting the questions up, and thanks to the team behind the cameras for taking the time to come up here and set up. I think, for me anyway, I'm sure General Thomas and Mr. Rand would agree, it's very important that we speak to the airmen. We can't go out to every base all the time. Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I love going out. It's one of the best things about this job is being able to go out and talk to airmen. So to be able to do it in this kind of setting with you, and get some of our concerns out, our topics out. I think it's not going out and talking to them directly, but it's about as close as we can all three get at one time. So definitely appreciate your work in this and the team's work setting up the cameras and rolling and trying to keep us looking good. And well, those two anyway.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. But definitely appreciate all of your efforts in this. So.
it was a pleasure, sir.
Yeah, I echo that, and just for everybody watching, I appreciate them taking the time to invest in this.
Look forward to next time.
Yep. Thanks, Janelle.
Thanks.